What's going on, DGen Nation? Back with another video. About to hop into a best ball Mania 4 draft. It's going to be my 106th draft of the offseason. We're really winding down here. There's some football on tonight. Patriots playing. Just getting closer and closer to the start of the season. So I'm picking here today out of the 6th spot. Another middle of the draft pick. I've had a bunch of 6, 7, 8, and 9s. Some 10s. That's been my prototypical draft spot for most of the offseason. Excited actually though to pick in this range with the Cooper Kupp news. He's been pushed back a little bit. Haven't been able to snag him at the new ADP, and he goes there. So he really only got pushed back a spot. It feels like Kelsey going there at 3 is a bit of a surprise. It went Jefferson, Chase, Kelsey, Tyree, Cooper Kupp. So I'm picking at the 6th spot. Yeah, I mean, CMC at 6 is pretty much a no-brainer. I don't have much CMC, so happily take a share of him right there. All 3 picks past ADP. I've been wanting more Dotson and more McLaurin, so this might be a good spot to grab both of them. Try and balance out and smooth out some of my exposures. Before my next pick wraps around, if you're drafting, you're just getting into best ball, you're just discovering underdog. If you use my promo code LarryBird617, they will give you a deposit match up to $100. So you put in 100, underdog will match that and put another 100 in your account. You'll have 200 in your account to do what you want with it. After I win Christian McCaffrey, AJ Brown goes there at 7, Eckler goes at 8, Stephon Diggs at 9. Diggs getting pushed more into that 9, 10, 11 range recently. I think that's a great value for him there. Amon-Ra St. Brown goes at 11. See what this team at the turn here does. 4, 5 red badges in this room. So, and I got to be closing in on my red badge here pretty soon. I got to be in the 8 or 900s in terms of overall drafts, somewhere in that range. So I feel like it's going to be coming any day now. This is draft 106, so I'm going to try and hit like 120 possibly. I think that's the absolute max is 120. I'm not going to max the tournament. So looking at, 10, probably 14 max, more BBMs coming up for me. So really was hammering the drafts much earlier this season than I have in years past. Best ball is pretty new to me. Finished 30th in Best Ball Mania last year. I did play 2 years ago on on DraftKings, excuse me. But I didn't do many. I did a few teams. I just got, dipped my toe in the water. I've been doing fantasy a long time, but best ball is still fairly new to me. So I really dipped my toe in pretty deep this year and maxed the big board. So I've done a lot of drafting. What makes sense here? I know Waddle did get banged up. I typically would take Waddle, but I'm going to go with Derrick Henry here. Go with the rare running back start. He's shot past Jonathan Taylor in ADP in the last third of drafts here. He was available a lot of times at the turn. Sometimes you'd see him slip into the mid to late 20s. Occasionally, you get him at 30, 31. But everything looks good again for Henry lining up as in a run heavy offense where he's the featured guy. So the only thing you're really worried about is, can he hold up to the punishment for another year? Can he be in, pretty much in every down back, even though he's not much of a pass catcher. He did, I think, set his career high in catches last year. I think he had around 30 catches. So pretty much out there and pretty much Tennessee's entire offense. See how much Hopkins can improve their passing game, but it's going to be another year of leaning heavily on Henry. So I think the steam and the push up the board here a little bit is justified with the uncertainty of Jonathan Taylor. So After I went Henry at 19, we see Chris Olave at 20, Jalen Waddle 21, Patrick Mahomes 22. The Jamar Chase team does get Higgins there at 23. So let's see if they go Burrow or do they try and push Burrow back to pick 47, maybe pick 50. I've only seen one team actually pull that off properly. They were able to get Chase Higgins. They got 2 picks in between, and then were able to get Burrow to follow them at 50. So did a masterful job there. That's up on my page if you want to check that draft out. It's a few videos ago. Obviously, going running back here is going to put me in a position where I'm really needing a receiver. All those top of the board elite quarterbacks are gone. Bit of a tier break, obviously, after Josh Allen, in my opinion. But Lamar has kind of nestled into this range as well. And if all things go well, obviously he can be in there. But I think that tier ends at Allen, and the next tier starts here with Lamar, Burrow, Fields, Herbert. I don't know. I might be looking at Calvin Ridley here. I've very little Ridley. I've seen people taking him at the turn. I've seen people reaching up for him in the teens recently. So the steam on him has been unbelievable. Looks like this team might be auto drafting, but they don't. They go Mark Andrews. So I will go Ridley here. Just it does. I don't know. It's just something about that click that scares me. I almost want to go Brees Hall, but I will go Ridley. I want to get some more Trevor Lawrence as well. So might actually reach up a bit on my next pick and grab Kirk. I know I can get Lawrence with my next pick after that. I should be able to. I should be able to get Lawrence at 54. Let's see what his ADP is. Yeah, 65. So I might even be able to get him on that next swing back and balance my roster out a little bit. I might be looking at like a George Kittle, build out a San Francisco stack, something like that. And I do have a San Francisco stack where I was able to get all 5 of their main players. I got McCaffrey, Debo, IU, Kittle, and Purdy. So that would have been another avenue I could have gone down, was to grab Debo, but I have a about 15% Debo right now. So I'm really feeling comfortable at my Debo exposure. So we'll get a little different here. Maybe go down that Jacksonville road. I could always grab Tannehill as well later. Maybe grab Treylon Burks, who maybe a little slightly below average on Burks. Could use a few more shares, but I'm definitely not light on him. I've been grabbing him a lot since he dipped. I was fading him a bit earlier in the draft season, but got him a couple times in the late 80s and the 90s. So happy to select him there. I think he still has potential to be an wide receiver too this year, despite Hopkins going there. So giving myself a lot of outs here. Hopkins is there, so he's an option. Could just go Kirk. So yeah, I'm going to get one of these two. I did say I wanted McLaurin. He also would be an option. This is a tough range right here. I'm not going to get either on the way back. So I'm not going to get any of these 3 on the way back. McLaurin would be a week 17 tie-in with McCaffrey. And obviously Hopkins with Henry. I'm going to go Kirk. Because I really want to get some more Lawrence ahead of ADP. But I'm okay with that. I don't have any Tennessee stacks with Hopkins, I don't believe either. So that's something I might be looking at as well in these next few drafts. Obviously, you can get Tannehill late. You can get Treylon Burks at a really nice range. So if you're able to get Derrick Henry, it's a pretty easy stack to get. So I might I might look to do that in my next handful of drafts here. So I'll do that at a different time. I'll focus more in on Jacksonville here. Maybe even if ETN could slip to me, and then I mean he's at the top of the board here, so not likely. But if ETN could slip to me and then grab Lawrence on the next swing around, that could be an option. So let's look at the board. So I went Calvin Ridley there at 30. After Ridley was DK Metcalf, Amari Cooper, Brees Hall, Keenan Allen, Jahmyr Gibbs. The team at the turn goes Debo Samuel and Lamar Jackson, 36 and 37. Drake London, Justin Fields, Christian Watson, Jerry Jeudy, Mike Williams. Pretty standard draft so far. I went Kirk at 43. Bit of a change up there, bit of a reach. I could have maybe tried to push it there to 54, but don't think he would have made it to me. Najee goes 44, and then you see McLaurin and Hopkins go off the board. So I think no matter what, those three were going to go with somewhere in this range. I don't think I didn't see Kirk making it back to me there at 54. So I'm happy with that. This becomes the dilemma. Do I go with Lawrence right here? That would be about 11 picks ahead of ADP. Or do I just push it and hope he makes it to me at 67? Nobody with any Jaguars is going to be picking before me. The team that just grabbed ETN was at the turn, so I will pick again before them. So I think what makes sense here is Ayuk. Still leaves me the out for a San Francisco stack. I am also light on Deontay Johnson, somebody I want to get more of. But I think Ayuk is the move here. Like him as a wide receiver 3. Really nice start. All 3 week 9 buys, though. Not something I'm worried about. You know, I'm going to have about 8 receivers, most likely 7 or 8 receivers. So as long as I can get different going forward with the bye weeks, that's fine. I'll balance that out later in the draft. Does make it tough though. Like if you're going with the San Francisco, Jacksonville build, now just seeing this, like you get a lot of week 9 buys in there, but I'm not going to let that stop me. I'm already too far into it. I'll get different elsewhere. I'll get a few receivers that don't have a week 9 buy. Obviously, I'll get a second quarterback that doesn't have a week 9 buy and play it by ear from there. So this is a little scary here because Lawrence is the top quarterback on the board. Some people will just take the best player available, regardless of whether they have any stacking options. So I'm afraid that could happen here, but that's why I like the Ayuk pick because it builds in that San Francisco stack, and I could always pivot and still go with the San Francisco Commanders week 17 matchup. Jahan Dotson will still be there. Could grab Robinson, Gibson, Howell late. So plenty of outs. See what the team at the turn here does. All right, so I went Ayuk at 54. 55 goes Alexander Madison, one of my least favorite picks in this range. Herbert, 56, Deontay Johnson, Tyler Lockett, Marquise Brown. Team at the turn goes J.K. Dobbins, JSN. Chris Godwin, 62. So I have to dodge pretty much 4 picks here. This team picking right here is Justin Fields. So not likely that they were going to take a quarterback. This team right here does not have a quarterback, but they go Miles Sanders, which is great. And these next 2 teams both have a quarterback. So fingers crossed, get Lawrence. I think this will be my first team with Ridley and Kirk. This team right here that's picking now has Jalen Hurts. Kittle would have been an option for me as well if Lawrence got snagged, but he doesn't. So regardless of who I really like on the board here, it's looking like Trevor Lawrence. And then I make my next pick around best available. Who's going to fit this build? Maybe one of the tight ends. Obviously, I was talking about Dotson. Makes sense with this build. Treylon Burks. Obviously, if Pitts, Waller, Goddard are still there, I like them. In addition to Evan Ingram, who I've not taken much of, and obviously fits in with my Jacksonville build, like Javonte, now that he's got a clean bill of health. So, ton of options for this next swing around. I'll be happy with pretty much any of the people I just queued. Alvin Kamara going there at 70. My goodness. I went Trevor Lawrence 67, then Gabe Davis, Michael Pittman, and then 70 overall. Alvin Kamara, who's been going in the 90s and the hundreds. So, I mean, this person just coming in, most likely, and that's the price you pay for not drafting early and scooping up that value. If this person's just coming in and they feel like it's acceptable to take Kamara in the 80s, it's fine if you want to do that, but you're just competing against a bunch of teams that have him in the 90s, in the early hundreds, from when there was real uncertainty at the very beginning of BestBall Mania. So those teams could have an additional 3 stud players before they took Kamara compared to where you're taking him. So you're missing out on a ton of value there. Just not a smart pick, my opinion. But you know what? If Kamara pays off RB1 numbers again and he's a stud, maybe this team can advance. It is all about your individual pod as well. So that's going to burn you more in the playoffs than it would in the regular season, competing against 11 other teams. That's where it's really going to hurt you, when you're going against, thousands of teams with Kamara. If he really smashes, obviously he's going to help advance rate. So that's what you're going up against. All right. So obviously a few of my players got snagged there. But I think the no-brainer pick for me here is Jahan Dotson. Helps me nicely smooth out my exposure to him. I've gotten him, and I want to say like 3 of my last 5 drafts. So definitely not somebody I wanted to be shut out on. I think he's tremendously talented. Came in and immediately last year and made an impact. Red zone threat. So he ties in with Ayuk and McCaffrey for week 17. I think Purdy for sure is on the radar. This could be a 3-quarterback team, depending on how my tight ends shake out here. I think the move would be to go Treylon Burks next, grab Tannehill late, and then go Treylon and Evan Ingram. I'm just not the biggest Dallas Goedert fan, but I feels like a spot where I might have to take him if he comes back to me here at 91. He doesn't. I didn't think he would. So he goes at the turn there. Team at the turn goes Goddard, Zay Flowers. They do have Lamar as well. Lamar slipped there a bit in this room. So they continue their Baltimore build out. I went Dodson 78, David Montgomery 79, James Conner, Brandon Cooks, James Cook, Deshaun Watson, Dallas Goedert, Zay Flowers. So the team at the turn out of the 12 spot. Then Elijah Mitchell, Quentin Johnston, Rashad White. I'm 2 picks away. Fingers crossed here that Treylon could make it to me. If he doesn't, we got to really consider here what's the pivot. I think the obvious choice would be Evan Ingram past ADP. So Burks does go there right at ADP. Pacheco goes. Portland Sutton's also a really nice option. I'm gonna go Bateman. I have almost no Bateman. He's back practicing. I'll push it here with Ingram and see if he can make it back to me on the next swing. One of these teams here grabbed, yeah. So the team at the turn grabbed ETN. So wouldn't really shock me if maybe they decided to go Evan Ingram here at the turn on the back to back. I like Evan Ingram, but I've made a pretty significant bet here on Jacksonville, and I'm okay not getting him. I think it's going to be really hard for him to replicate what he did last year. But that being said, he's obviously one of the most talented pass catching tight ends in the league. That's unquestionable. But I just don't know how he gets there with the addition of Ridley. This team already has Hawkinson though, so maybe they decide to pass on him, or maybe they do go Ingram and just decide to be done at tight end. He is the top player on the board, so but they pass on him. They go Antonio Gibson. So I have 4 picks here to dodge to get Evan Ingram. If I'm able to get him, I will feel fantastic about that. It'll be the right move to take Bateman. So this is the only pick I have to dodge right here. Team at the turn went Dalvin Cook, Antonio Gibson, and then Michael Thomas, Jamison Williams, Anthony Richardson. Hopefully this team is not timing out. They are a red badge, so they could have a queue set up, but they go Brian Robinson. That's beautiful. Absolutely beautiful. Get our guy, Ingram, who I don't have much of, 6 picks past ADP. For a team where I went running back, this wide receiver room is pretty nasty. Really like it. I waited on Bateman just to get the health news. And to me, I don't feel like he's risen that high in ADP yet. I know sometimes it does take time. It takes a week or so of people drafting him in the 70s, but he went right there around ADP. I think his lowest ADP was probably somewhere in the low hundreds. So don't think he took a tremendous dip. Now that I have Ingram as well, I actually feel okay about going 2 tight ends. So I could take the 3 quarterbacks. I could go Tannehill because he does have that rushing upside. He is someone who runs around the goal line. I think his rushing efficiency and just total yardage went way down last year, but I think he's playing for his career this year, so we might see a little bit of a resurgence from him. So I like the 3 quarterback build here for this particular room. Maybe him and Purdy could kind of trade bye weeks. Maybe one of them has a nice spike week when Trevor Lawrence is on bye. And Purdy does have the week 9 bye also. So the 3rd quarterback makes a tremendous amount of sense. Or I could just skip out on Purdy and go Tannehill, but we'll see how it plays out. We'll see who my second tight end is. If my second tight end is somebody in the much later rounds, then maybe I will go with the 3rd and just pass on one of those quarterbacks. More likely than not, it would be Purdy just because of the dual week 9 buys. So I went Evan Ingram 102. After that, AJ Dillon, Rashad Penny, Dak Prescott, Tyler Boyd, David Njoku. The team at the turn here goes Odell Beckham with their first selection. So they're going all in on Baltimore. I mean, I've done it a couple times, but I just find it tough to go all in on Baltimore when you're not getting Mark Andrews. You're going to find very few connections like those two have. They just seems like Lamar always knows where Andrews is. They need a big play. They go to Andrews. He's just that guy. He's like Diet Kelsey, you know? I mean, he did outscore Kelsey 2 years ago, got banged up, but that Mahomes to Kelsey quarterback tight end combo, there's nothing that comes close to it aside from Lamar and Mark Andrews. So I mean, it couldn't help you get different, but I think the way the draft's been shaken out, where it's really hard to get Andrews and Lamar together, I think this is a very chalky stack, what he's building here, like with Zay Flowers, with Beckham. I snagged Rashad Bateman. Surprised he didn't go Bateman there. The smarter pick to make to take Goddard there for sure, but Bateman, someone I'm going to be hammering here down the stretch because I don't think I have a share. This might be my first or second share of him. So if he returns to form, I don't want to be completely out on him. That much I can say. So feeling really good about my receiver room. I don't have much Khalil Herbert, and seems like he's running with the ones. So I'll grab him here as my running back 3. I love when I look at my team on paper and it's completely different than any other teams I have. Because I do have a tendency, like a lot of people, you pick your guys, you're playing the hits, you're playing the favorites. Every time you go through, like, for example, that 9th round right there at around 102, I've taken Zach Charbonnet like 30, no, less than 30 now at this point, but I have him, I think, like 26% owned. He's my 3rd highest owned player. So repeatedly in that round, I've been clicking Charbonnet, Charbonnet, Charbonnet. I love Charbonnet. Like, I'm not regretting that at all. I think if anything, it's only been heightened with the Kenneth Walker injury. Like, you see there, he goes 113. That's past his ADP with Kenneth Walker being hurt. I don't understand. It should be going in the other direction. But clicking a Khalil Herbert, clicking a Bateman, who I have none of, clicking Dotson, who I'm very low owned on. That's what helps you balance out. Even if I don't like Bateman, I don't want to get caught having 0% of people. And that's the mistake I think some people make. And there's actually some really smart people who have won high stakes tournaments who completely fade guys at a 0. They will not take any shares of them. And I don't know. I just not, it's not for me. I did that last year. I did it with Josh Jacobs. I had 2 or 3 shares on 100 teams. And Miles Sanders, I had 0 shares. And Miles Sanders was phenomenal. If I mix Miles Sanders in there in a couple teams, late round Miles Sanders, I forget exactly where he was going last year, but it was definitely past round 6. I want to say it was like 7, 8, 9, somewhere in there. So if you were really hammering him, if you were hammering Jacobs, you did great. If you were completely fading them, it hurt your advance rates. I still did well despite it, but I'm still going to get some exposure to guys I don't like. That's the name of the game for me. It's not going to kill me to have 1 share, 2 shares, 3 shares of Bateman on 120 teams. So that's kind of how I've looked at it. There's many guys like that. Odell Beckham's another one. Not my favorite guy, but you talk about 9th round, getting picked in the hundreds. If he's my wide receiver 5 or 6, taking the flyer on him. And I've still made my player takes while doing that. I've still snatched 30% of Charbonnet. I've taken 25% Hunter Henry in the last round because I like him a lot. I don't think he's a last round selection. So it's just things like that I think will lead you to a well-balanced portfolio overall. Normally I would go Zay Jones here, but I'm going to pass on him. I'm going to go Dulcich. I really like the camp reports. I really like what's being said about him. Obviously, he's another week 9 buy, but I'm going with a 3rd tight end. I think this is going to be a 3-6-6-3. I think that makes the most sense. Chigo Kongwo was definitely somebody who I'm low owned on. I'll throw Zay in the queue, see who wraps back around to me. That was a bit of a quick trigger there on Dulcich. If I could rethink that, I maybe would have passed on him and gone Zay, and then grab Chigo Kongwo on the way back around because he does have a different bye week. And I was saying to myself, I would like to go 2 tight ends, 3 quarterbacks here. And not taking Purdy would allow me to pretty much push Tannehill to my second to last pick. And I could fill in some more roster spots. You know, Tannehill, even 2 years ago, didn't clear 200 points. It was a solid season, but not great. 270 rushing yards and 7 touchdowns. Last year, he had under 100 rushing yards and 2 touchdowns. So you take away some of his rushing touchdowns, it really limits his upside. So the thing is, though, if I go Purdy, I do have the 2 week 9 buys. I pretty much have boxed myself into a corner here with these stacks that I have to go with a third quarterback. So what I might do is go for running backs. That will help me balance things out because I can still grab the 7th receiver. If these running backs stay healthy, I mean, I absolutely love going for running backs with this build, especially going 2 with my first 2 rounds. So I can just grab another one that I feel really good about. See what happens here. Zay Jones does go. I'm almost relieved because I was going to take Zay right there. The fact that Kamara is now only going to miss 3 games has soured me a bit on Kendra Miller. I think he still has some nice potential. Obviously, Algier is dealing with Bijan Robinson now, or else he would be a nice selection in this range. I could make a bet and just handcuff Khalil Herbert to either Johnson or Foreman. Not really sure who's the better of the handcuff. I know Khalil Herbert does a little bit of everything. Don't know if he does anything great. I think if Johnson was going to come in, he's got the 3rd down role, and Foreman's got the early down work. So I think even if Herbert goes down, it's still a split. I don't know how smart it would be to handcuff either of them. So I just decided to go a Kongwo there. I got my 3 tight ends, so I'm done there. I think Dulcich literally could be a top 5 tight end if everything breaks well for him. So I think he's tremendous value there. So I can still go with Purdy and Tannehill and just hone in on a 4th running back coming up here on my next selection. Whoever's my favorite running back on the board for the next wrap around, and then I will grab Purdy if he doesn't get sniped for me at 163. I also have to factor in who has Deebo Samuel because they could be liable to grab. Okay, so it's the team at the turn there as Deebo. So I'm going to be picking again before they. No, I won't be actually. So I have to take that into consideration. They've only got 1 quarterback. They do have Deebo. Let's see where Purdy is on the list of quarterbacks. So yeah, this is a room where quarterbacks are hanging around. ADP wise, obviously it's lining up like Carr's 151. We're approaching pick 151 here in a couple picks, but there's draft rooms where you'd see Carr, Murray, Stafford all off the board at this point ahead of ADP, and you'd be looking at someone like a Jordan Love or a Purdy at the top of the board. So I think I push here. I think I push and I try to snag Purdy on the next wrap around. So who do I like here? Love Singletary. I really do. I could do Roshan or Deonta Foreman, but I'm going to continue to go Singletary. I think he's going way too late. He's way too solid. He's the type of guy that earns the favor of a coaching staff. We saw Damian Pierce wear down second half of last season. I still think Pierce is the one, but I think it's much closer to a 50-50 split. If CJ Stroud can get that offense moving, I think Singletary has another nice year. So I'll make the bet on Singletary. Very muddied backfield in Chicago. It's really hard to kind of pick somebody. If I and I've taken a ton of Roshan Johnson already. I think Foreman is the guy I'm the least owned on, the least in on, I should say. Could be a nice role if he gets the goal line work in that offense, but it's really anybody's guess how that shakes out. So not many Tennessee stacks for me either. Some reason I just don't believe in Tennessee tight ends. Maybe it's because I'm a Patriots fan and we got burned by Jonnu Smith, but it seems like the Titans are one of those teams where they always have hype around their tight ends. Similar to the Texans, you hear, oh, this guy looked great in camp, or yeah, he's very athletic, blah, blah, blah. And it just never seems to pan out. The Colts are one of those teams, always hype around certain tight ends, and ends up just being a committee, or the guy doesn't perform up to the expectations. So teams with tight ends like that scare me. I've been taking just a plethora of elite tight ends this year. I really, for most of my drafts, do not get past Dallas Goedert. He's a pretty good cutoff there. I do like Freiermuth. I do like some of those guys like Schultz. I'll take every once in a while, but if I can, I try to get a Pitts. I try to get a Kittle. Obviously, Kelsey, you're making significant investment in, but if it makes sense, I try and get one of those top 8 or 9 elite tight ends. So did Purdy make it back? He did. So this draft is just going completely according to plan. I grabbed Purdy here. Pretty much right at ADP. I have a Jacksonville stack, a San Francisco stack, and I'm working on finishing out a Tennessee stack. Obviously would like to have either Hopkins or Burks with the Tennessee stack, but this could be an opportunity to get a little different. I'm sure a lot of the Henry owners don't feel like they need to take Tannehill like they're correlated in any sort of a way, but if the Tennessee offense is moving the ball, what does that mean? That means more goal line opportunities for Henry. So I do think they're positively correlated. So what makes sense for the next wrap? So looking at my receivers, obviously got the 3 week 9 buys. I've only got 5 receivers right now. I'm done at running back. Going to take the 3rd quarterback. So I'm looking at Tannehill. So probably Tannehill plus 3 more receivers. Or if I decide to go 1 more running back, that's an option for me as well. If there's somebody that's there past ADP, I could go with like a Tajay Spears and just handcuff him to Derrick Henry just in case anything happens to Henry. I have his backup. They are a run heavy team, so I think he could be valuable. Something like that. So we'll see how it plays out. I'm obviously not going to go with another week 9 buy a receiver. Maybe snag somebody I don't have much of. Justin Ross is somebody like that. Jalen Hyatt's getting the steam again. I was taking a ton of him, especially in the last couple rounds when he fell. Shaheed. Renfro, I just have a sickening amount of Renfro, but if he made sense, I would take him here. I also want to get more Kendrick Bourne because I have way too much Tyquan Thornton, and the camp are just starting to look uglier and uglier. So Bourne could be an option. Demario Douglas getting tremendous steam out of Patriots camp. A lot of options here. So I was looking at Shaheed right there. He goes not in love with any of these receivers. Obviously, I said I have like 39% Hunter Renfro. So, and he's ahead of ADP here. So I think the move is Spears. I'm very light owned on Spears. Furthers my Tennessee bet. Allows me to handcuff Henry. So I have 3 more picks left. I'm going to go 3 receivers. I'm going to go 2 receivers and Tannehill, or possibly just pivot to the 3 receivers and just say, screw Tannehill. It's debatable whether I need him. A lot of people aren't scared to have those 2 bye weeks together. I'd prefer not to. Some people are also scared of Will Levis, but from everything I've seen and read, he's a year away at least. So what I might do is go Tannehill with my next pick around. Yes, he would be ahead of ADP, but you see him creeping up towards the top of the board there. Teams feel like they need, sometimes a third quarterback. One of the teams coming up here only has 1. So most teams in this draft taking 3. I typically take 2 the vast majority of the time, but I think this makes sense for a 3 with the dual week 9 buys. So I grabbed Tannehill there at 187, and then I could just take whatever my 2 favorite receivers are. My 2 favorite receivers that don't have a week 9 buy. Just take whatever value falls to me. So I think that's what makes sense here. So I went Devin Singletary 150, Brock Purdy 163, Tajay Spears 174. This is one of those drafts where, aside from Treylon Burks, who I was hoping to get back to me, he went right at ADP. I was 2 picks away. Other than him, this draft went exactly according to plan. I smoothed out exposures. I got guys that I'm low owned on in a team that makes sense, in a build that makes sense. I was hyper focused in on week 17 earlier in the draft season. I still got week 17 correlation here with San Francisco and Washington, obviously, but I'm concerned now less with week 17 as opposed to just building out stacks I really like with guys I'm low owned on. So being able to get Bateman and Dotson, who else? I mean, McCaffrey, I'm super low owned on. Henry, I think I'm less than 5% on Henry as well. Calvin Ridley. This is a team full of guys I don't normally get. Chiga Kongwo. So feel great about the way this has gone. Is it a team that has a chance to win the tournament? Just on paper, I think so. I think I'm strong at every position. You're not going to get much stronger than I am at receiver by going running back. That's how you have to do it. If you're going to go running back, you're pretty much going to go hammer receiver, which I've done. So snag Tannehill there. Barring injury, I'm ensuring that at least I have somebody starting for week 9. Have 5 running backs, 4 of which should be, if not starters, at least in the mix every week. 2 elite ones, obviously, with McCaffrey and Henry. And I like the 5 receivers I have on the roster. Ridley, Kirk, Ayuk, Dotson, Bateman. Was able to correlate my tight end there with Evan Ingram, so got some really nice pieces of the Jags offense. And then just grab two kind of flyers, guys with upside, Dulcich and Okongwu. And I'm going to just see what I like here at receiver for these last two picks. So it will end up being a 3-5-7-3. Somewhat standard. I mean, not for me. Usually, I'm usually going two quarterbacks, as I said. My team that made the finals and finished 30th was a two quarterback build. So that's the direction I've leaned, but occasionally it makes sense to do 3-3, especially if you really like your running back room, which I do. If those two are healthy, obviously they both have number one overall potential, but RB1 potential without a doubt, no question. So Terrence Marshall's another guy who I don't have much of. He could be an option here. So we see Tank Dell here, 195. Finally getting some of the steam he deserves. I was just taking so much Tank Dell in the big board and occasionally here in BestBall Mania as well. Probably have like 10% Tank Dell. The big board happened prior to the draft, so I really liked him as a prospect. Had a huge year on Houston. He's an explosive player, so I think he has an impact right out of the gate, more so than people think. I wish I could do a little poll here, see who people like these last couple picks. I think Terrence Marshall, I'm very low on. And, good camp reports. That's a lot of times all you can really go on. You don't want to over believe the hype, but you have to take it serious, especially on a team like that with a thin wide receiver core. So I will go Marshall there. Helps mix up my bye weeks at receiver. And I think I'm going to go Bourne with my last pick. The fact that they didn't get Hopkins, obviously they added a couple rookies who are really excelling in camp, Kayshon Boutte and Demario Douglas. So there's a lot of debate about who makes the team, but I think Bourne's really talented, and with a real offensive coordinator, I think Bill O'Brien gets the most out of him. So I don't want to have 0% of Kendrick Bourne. I had probably 30 something percent of him last year, so that really hurt. I underestimated how bad Matt Patricia was going to be as the OC. And that's on me. Maybe a little bit of a hometown bias. He really looked great in the Patriot system 2 years, the year prior to that. So I was thinking at worst, maybe he replicated that season and got a little bit better, but that's obviously not what happened. The thing that has me second guessing it is how good this kid Demario Douglas has been. Just every day there's a report out about how he's absolutely burning people out of the slot and earning the respect of the defense. And The thing is, though, you're talking about Juju. Where's Juju going to play? And they're going to put him on the outside. They also have Mike Gesicki, who you think would operate out of the slot. So I don't know where Douglas fits in right out of the gate, especially on a team that's going to go two tight ends a lot. So I'll go Bourne here. I will mix in more shares of Douglas, though. And that's going to do it for this draft. So take a look at these last couple picks here. I went Tannehill 187, Terrence Marshall 198, and then Kendrick Bourne 211. See if we see any interesting selections here. Malik Davis gets picked there at 208. Obviously, I mentioned Tank Dell, Sean Tucker, who could be vying for the backup role in Tampa Bay behind Rachaad White. He goes there at 196. You'd figure somebody's got to work in there behind Rachaad White. There's not much behind him with Fournette gone. And I think Fournette got taken a couple picks ago. So it's really getting down to the wire here with these veteran running backs. I think that's the biggest story right now. Obviously, no significant injuries have happened, but the fact that Dalvin Cook's not signed, Zeke Elliott, just a ton of, Fournette, just a ton of talented running backs out there who can't find jobs. So see how that plays out. But that's going to do it for today's video. Just a quick rundown of the team before I go. 3-5-7-3 build. Trevor Lawrence, Brock Purdy, Ryan Tannehill at quarterback. Running back, Christian McCaffrey, Derrick Henry, Khalil Herbert, Devin Singletary, Tajay Spears. Wide receiver, Calvin Ridley, Christian Kirk, Brandon Ayuk, Jahan Dotson, Rashad Bateman, Terrence Marshall, Kendrick Bourne. At tight end, Evan Ingram, Greg Dulcich, Chigo Kongwu. So Jacksonville stack, San Francisco stack, Tennessee stack. And I was able to navigate it pretty well and get most of the guys I wanted. So that's going to do it. Appreciate you guys watching. If you could do me a favor, it would mean a lot. Hit that subscribe button. Leave me a like. Leave me a comment. Let me know what you think. I'll respond to any and all comments. And any feedback is always appreciated. And I love doing this. And I look forward to talking to you guys soon. DJ Nation, out.